And without knowing the questions to ask, without thinking they have to go ask the questions, students end up in a situation like yours where you get to the point of applying and it's like, oh, I should be doing all this other stuff that I haven't been doing. Application Renovation, Season 2, Episode 13. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Hi, Dr. Gray. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited to have a chat with you, look at your application, and hopefully give you some information, hopefully some advice, some motivation to move forward and make you a successful applicant next application cycle. Before we jump in and take a look at your application, I want to know from you where you think you went wrong, where you think you went right, what sort of feedback you've gotten on your application from advisors or from medical schools. Let's start there.
I would probably say, I don't know, I kind of just rushed through my entire application. It was my first time applying, and I didn't really know what to expect from the application process. I had never heard anything about you or your videos, so obviously I didn't have that information to help.
Oh, there's the reason. All right, we're done with the episode.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah, I think it was right after I submitted my application when I came across all your media and stuff, and I just did a major face plant.
Like, this guy is out here giving all of us free advice. That's okay. Obviously, my goal is to help as many students as possible through the podcast or the YouTube video. So if you're watching this YouTube video and you have no idea who I am, just go to medicalschoolhq.net and you'll hear all of the fun stuff that we do there. So you applied. Any interviews, any sort of feedback from anyone through the process?
No interviews, just a bunch of letters of denying my application or
condolences.
Not being,
yeah. Okay. All right. All right. So, any feedback from anyone?
Not specific feedback, just most of it saying to improve my application overall.
Yeah. Okay.
Reapply again the next year.
Did you have any guidance or help from a pre-med advisor, pre-health advisor through this process, or no?
Yes, slightly. I kind of jumped on the pre-med wagon a little late in my college career, so I didn't have too much time to talk to a pre-med advisor before applying.
Yeah.
But I did a little bit, mostly about shadowing and personal statement stuff.
Okay. All right. Well, let's go ahead and jump into the application. I'll run through it, give my thoughts on what I see, and then at the end we'll answer some questions and see what we can do to move forward. Sound good?
Okay.
All right.
Yep.
So, application. So first thing I see here is you actually, for someone who really didn't know the process very well, submitted your application early, which is great. And just so the students can see, even though you submitted early, it still took a month to get that application process, which is why we always say get in early, get in line early. We have your kind of demographics, no major red flags. You didn't mark yourself. Actually, I don't see here. Yeah, the disadvantage, you didn't mark yourself as disadvantaged. No big red flags, which is good. And then we get to the transcript part of the application. And we start off with, first thing, we see a dual enrollment class that we got a C in. So not the best start. A lot of students, it's funny, I understand the reasons for dual enrollment and reducing the cost of college and taking classes in high school. But a lot of times, high school students just aren't ready for that level of classes, and it just has a potential to ruin students moving forward. So we start off college with another C with Gen Chem, pre-calc, calculus. So math, definitely not your friend, at least from an A and B standpoint. Lots of C's, no F's for those, which is good. So it's interesting to me when I see a trend like that, when I go, okay, calculus 1, calculus 2, calculus 3, I'm like, well, holy moly, like, what are you studying to take calculus 4? Some students, like, their head would explode to see that many calculuses. Is it calculi, the plural of calculus? To see that many calculus classes. What I see when I see all of those C's is I see someone who potentially isn't reflecting on their journey and just continuing to just go with it, right? C, 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 C. And it potentially fits with what you said earlier with you weren't on the pre-med wagon earlier. And guess what? C's were okay for what you were doing in the past. You're like, I don't need to improve. I got my C's. I'm good to go. I hate calculus. Calculus hates me. Whatever. I'm done with you. I don't want to put any more effort into it. And that's kind of the story that it's telling right now. So, and it kind of fits with your I wasn't pre-med, because most pre-meds would be like, holy moly, number one, I wouldn't take 4 calculus classes. But number 2, I can't keep getting C's. I need to improve. So we get to junior year and we get to organic chemistry. Is that when the pre-med train started rolling?
Organic chemistry 1 was part of my major before I did pre-med, but organic chemistry 2 was not.
Okay. So. All right. So we see organic chemistry 2 labeled here as part of your senior classes. So again, some more C's. So right off the bat, it's like, okay, from a science perspective, you're not doing very well from like the BCPM, right? Biology, chemistry, physics, and math for the AMCAS application. So C's and D's. I see lots of A's and B's elsewhere, but those science classes are not going to do well for your science GPA. So we get down to the bottom, and then we see your science GPA, and we go, yep, that's the story, right? High school, that 1 C from your dual enrollment class. You unfortunately, the biggest issue for me is not the overall GPA, which obviously is an issue. It's that there really was no improvement anywhere. It was just more of the same, right? 257, 279, so a tiny bit improvement down to a 238, and then back up to a 264, still less than sophomore year. So to me, that's the bigger concern, is the lack of any sort of proof, if you want to put it that way, of showing academic capability of doing well in obviously what is going to be hardcore science classes in medical school. Your all other GPA took a hit junior year, which I think you put somewhere in your application, in your personal statement somewhere about something happening in your junior year or something. I forget was there. And so for someone looking at the application, I can go, wow, 382, 375, 285, 359 for your all other GPA. That tells me a story that something happened there. I wish it was the same for your science GPA, where it was mostly good and then 1 bad year, because that, again, would fit a story better than I just am not really good at the science classes. Yet. I like to add yet on that. I can fix it. And then we get to the MCAT, right, which kind of fits the same narrative. Not really prepared for the science classes in college, in undergrad, not really prepared to do well on the MCAT. All right, so then we get to your activity list, and I counted here, right? You start off with physician shadowing number 1, physician shadowing number 2, physician shadowing number 3. Right off the bat, I don't like seeing that many entries for shadowing. It looks like you're just padding your application. You're like, I don't have a lot to talk about, so I'm just gonna to put all of my physician shadowing as separate entries, and so that's what it looks like. The other negative thing that I see here is you submitted June of 2019, and your activities are June to August 2019, May to August 2019, and May to August 2019. And so all that looks like to me is you got to this point in the application cycle, and you found out that shadowing is important, and you scrambled at the last minute to get shadowing, right? Which is probably what happened. And that's not a bad thing, right? I'm glad that you scrambled to get shadowing. It just typically looks like a student who probably doesn't understand well enough why they want to be a doctor. And they just decided at some point, hey, I think I want to go to medical school. I'm going to apply to medical school, and then realized, oh, I should go do these other things, and you go do them. So it looks like you're just checking the boxes as you go. So that's something that's very easy to stand out and look for. For me, shadowing should not be, and I shouldn't say should not be, that's a little too strong. For me, shadowing usually isn't a most meaningful experience for students. When you read most meaningful, do not read into it most meaningful for you wanting to be a physician. Read into it most meaningful for you as a person. Okay? Shadowing for most people is super boring. Yeah, it's exciting the first couple times you do it. You're like, oh my God, I get to go to the hospital. Oh, I get to get scrubs out of the scrub machine at the hospital and go into the OR. Oh my God, it's so amazing. And then you're like, oh crap, I've done this 2 times already. It's the same thing every time, right? Not super meaningful. Sometimes exciting, especially early on. So for me, most meaningful shadowing isn't really a thing. There are some medical schools out there that tell you to put shadowing as a most meaningful. I push back on medical schools that say that to say that it's not their job to tell you what's most meaningful in your life. Your story should fit with why you want to be a doctor. You don't need to have shadowing be a most meaningful experience for that. So just something I highlighted here.
Okay.
You have the Latino Student Association member. Usually association members are usually very weak experiences, right? Being a pre-med club member, usually there's not a lot of impact there, unless as a member you were actually involved and did a lot of community service stuff with the organization. So if you did do that, show me that impact. What sort of events and activities did you do? What sort of impact did you have from those experiences? Okay?
Okay.
Group fitness instructor, a great experience. Tell me a story of like clients that came into the gym and you changed their life, right? You were able to help them lose weight or however you were able to impact them. Telling that story would be very impactful.
Okay.
All right. So the group fitness instructor, the fellowship chair council, again, what was the impact of that position? It was a lot of just kind of what you did, right? What's the impact? Senior design project manager. So what's interesting is a lot of these start dates are around the same time, August of 2018. And if I scroll back up, that's kind of the start of your senior year, it looks like. So is that kind of when you were like, okay, I'm done with my original major, which was biomedical engineering, and so now I have time to do things? Is that kind of why a lot of these activities start around the same time?
Not exactly. I would say, let's see, for the group fitness instructor, for instance, it was kind of just, I started going through training for it the previous semester, and I didn't actually start the job until that semester of my senior year. And so that one was kind of just like a friend got me into it, and so I had to go through training first. So I didn't want to put the training period on my application because I didn't know if that would really count as being an instructor.
Okay.
And then with the senior design project, yes, that was during the last 2 semesters of my engineering degree. And then, let's see.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
Well, so not necessarily more time because you stopped being a biomedical engineer, but it's just a coincidence.
More or less, yeah.
Okay. We get down finally into some medical experiences outside of shadowing. We have this Veterans Healthcare System, and that's from May of 2018 to August of 2018. And so to me, unless there is other medical or clinical experience, one of the biggest red flags to me outside of your stats is a lack of clinical experience, a lack of experience to show you why you're doing this. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And definitely a big red flag. I had the former dean of admissions of UC Irvine on the podcast a long time ago. I think it was episode 171 of the Premed Years. So premedyears.com/171. Who she stated, right, lack of clinical experience is definitely one of the biggest red flags for not getting an acceptance.
Yeah, and I think just as a side note, that was kind of one of the problems I realized after I came across all of your videos and stuff was
Yeah.
I didn't understand the difference between like shadowing and actual clinical experience. So I was, when I did start that, I was like, oh, I just need to find some doctors to kind of follow around, and that'll be good.
Yep. Yeah, that'll be good. I'll be good.
Yeah.
And then even that, when you did that, it was still super late in the process, right?
It was, yeah.
Okay. So the one thing that I see here, just without even reading it, is the meaningful experience here, I can tell, is nowhere near the 1,325 characters, right? Use your space. Use the space given to you. Fill it out. If it's meaningful, you'll have something to say about it. You didn't have anything to say about it because you didn't fill it out. So is it really meaningful? Or again, are you just making a clinical experience meaningful because that's what you think you have to do to show that you want to be a doctor, which is what I'm guessing you did.
Okay.
Community service, ministry volunteer, great experience. Again, show me impact. So through the experience, were you interacting with members of the community, congregation, whatever that language is? Did you impact someone's life? Tell that story. That'll show me a lot about you. Band instructor. Everyone loves the one time at band camp story. Gotta love American Pie. It forever changes band culture in this country. So band instructor, great experience, something to talk about. I love the sort of non-medical, doing it only for volunteering at the soup kitchen type experiences. It just shows me a lot more of who you are. So the one thing that stands out for me with the research assistant one, right off the bat, it's good that you have the research. It was a while ago, obviously part of your degree because it was the biomedical lab. Is how you tried to sell this with the description, right? My whole message is don't sell yourself. Just tell me a story. Show me your impact. Show me how it impacted you. Tell a story, right? And so looking at the activity here, you say, my first endeavors to help me build teamwork and communication skills. I'm like, okay, all right, you're selling yourself. Look at my teamwork. Look at my communication skills. Okay, so just a word there. And then working as a server, again, the selling, right? It prepared me like no other experience to handle the workload of college. Now, I would push back on that, number one, because it's selling, and number two, did it really prepare you? Because you didn't do very well in college, right? From a GPA perspective. So maybe from a like you survived college to handle that workload, but from being able to handle the workload of college, to me, that handling the workload of college means that you actually succeeded GPA wise, just in a generic kind of definition. So that one, I kind of chuckled a little bit when I read that. I'm like, well, did it really? From your all other GPA, it was decent. So maybe from that perspective, and then just science kicked your butt. Welcome to the club of science kicking students' butts. All right. So those are the activities, right? So what stands out clearly is just a lack of clinical experience, a lack of consistent long-term shadowing. You kind of crammed it in there at the end, which fits with the story of I was late to the pre-med game and just being kind of ignorant in its strictest definition to what this pre-med process is and what you need to be doing to prove to yourself that you want to be a physician. So very common, right? I was in the same boat a lot. I didn't know really what the MCAT was until at some point it's like, hey, you're taking the MCAT, right? I'm like, what the heck's the MCAT? But in today's day and age, a lot of people don't think it's an excuse to kind of be naive to what this whole process is. And my response to that is like, if you don't know the questions to ask, you're still not going to know, even though we have all this information at our fingertips. right? So it's still very common for students to go through this whole process thinking, oh, I can get into medical school. I just need to do well in classes and apply to medical school. That's what it's like, right? And without knowing the questions to ask, without thinking they have to go ask the questions, students end up in a situation like yours where you get to the point of applying and it's like, oh, I should be doing all this other stuff that I haven't been doing. Oh, well, I'll still apply anyway because I'm an amazing person and they're going to love me, right? A lot of students get to that point. All right. So with that said, let's get to your personal statement. So right off the bat, I actually like your seed, right? Your seed is kind of your uncle and getting exposed to this VA healthcare system and the prosthetists and the orthotists, I can't even say those names, the prosthetics and orthopedics kind of world, which led you to the biomedical engineering, right? And some people will go, wait a minute, why are you talking about biomedical engineering? That is your seed. That's what led you down this path. So I think your seed is good. I would like to see a little bit more showing and a little bit more kind of emotion to potentially solidify the story a little bit more. But I think right off the bat, you're doing good. Now, you don't necessarily have to start with a seed. You did. Great. That's fine. The next part of this is you say, my internship first sparked my interest in becoming a physician. I don't like just generic blanket statements like that. I want to know why. Why did it spark your interest? Show me how it sparked your interest, right? That's the showing versus telling. This is a very telling statement, and I want to see it, right? I want to see what you experienced to understand how it sparked your interest, okay? Moving on. You said here, I also had the opportunity to observe doctors working with patients, but you say in the right before that, I spent most of my time shadowing engineers. And so you say, this experience sparked my interest in medicine. I spent most of my time shadowing engineers. I'm like, wait a minute, how did it spark your interest in medicine if you spent most of your time shadowing engineers? So the story isn't matching up, okay? So you gotta be careful. You do say you had the opportunity to shadow doctors or observe doctors working with patients. You saw passion for their work. There's a little typo here. I don't know if that's just a typo in the PDF or you just double typed passion. But that's okay. Typos happen. They're not going to kill an application, but it's something everyone wants to avoid. So you saw their passion, and then you say, I too felt passion to serve others, which I feel even more so now. So basically you're saying, I was in this kind of healthcare setting. I was shadowing engineers. I saw doctors be passionate. I want to be a doctor, right? I have passion too. Therefore I should be a doctor. So the story doesn't fit for why the switch from biomedical engineering, the being kind of in the prosthetics and orthopedics kind of lab, orthotics lab, where that switch came from. So that part of the story is a huge missing chunk. I understand your seed. Now I need to know really what drove you to go, no thank you, I want to come over here, right? But it fits with the timeline of when you were saying, I switched from the biomedical engineering side of it to pre-med. You start shadowing. I'm not a huge fan of talking about shadowing in a personal statement. Obviously, the lack of clinical experience led to you really not having much else to talk about. Shadowing is typically very hands-off, not very impactful, and so it's hard to use shadowing as watering the seed type examples. And the fact that you're writing this essay for your application, which you submit in June of 2019, saying, hey, I want to be a doctor. I just shadowed a doctor last month. It just doesn't fit with someone who really is focused is the wrong word, but is really ready to start this journey, right? To me, this would just scare me off as an admissions committee member going, great, this person thinks she wants to be a doctor. I want to see her dedicate more time to this to really make sure that she wants to be a doctor, so that she's really sure that she wants to be a doctor, not just, oh man, I've been going down the wrong path. I think I want to be a doctor. I should apply to medical school right away.
Okay.
I guarantee you that people reading your application will have very similar thoughts of you're just not ready yet from proving to yourself yet that this is what you want. Okay?
Okay.
And then the takeaways here, right? A good physician must have an endless love for learning. Super generic, super cliche. You must be saying, oh, I have an endless love for learning, and I know physicians need an endless love for learning, therefore you should accept me. Right? Those sort of generic kind of cliche statements you don't need. Right? So again, the statement here of, it was during this time I knew it was during this time I knew my calling, my hope, and my utmost desire to become a physician. It seems like an incomplete sentence trying to read that. But the question I still come to is why? Why was it your utmost desire? What was it about this experience that led to you confirming that this is what you want? So you gave me what, I want to know why. Okay?
Okay.
The sales pitch again. I am well prepared to take on medical school and all it entails. Really? Are you sure? You just started shadowing a month ago as you're writing this. Do you know what medical school entails? Do you really understand the work that it takes? Your GPA, science GPA, doesn't tell me that you're ready for medical school. Your MCAT score doesn't tell me that you're ready for medical school. Right? Those don't tell me that you won't be an amazing physician. You can be an amazing physician with not great GPA and not a great MCAT score. But to get through medical school, you need to show me the academic capability to survive medical school. And that I don't think you've done yet. And so you have this statement in here, which is super generic and also probably not true. Okay? I have extensive research experience. It provided me training in lab equipment, operation safety procedures, right? That stuff doesn't matter. I'm not looking for students who have a training in lab equipment, operation, and safety procedures and using aseptic techniques, right? That's not the goal of the personal statement, is to prove that you have this stuff. Therefore, I should go to medical school, right? Your leadership, organization, time management skills, again, just sales pitch stuff. Everything in this paragraph that I highlighted is all in your activity list already.
Yeah.
Okay, you're just repeating yourself here, trying to highlight different skills, different traits that you have that you think are important. But it also comes back to, you don't have the clinical experience to really talk about, and so you're just trying to fill out the rest of the personal statement with other stuff. You get to your GPA, right? So red flag statement, I think it's good. Highlight your GPA, what's going on here. 3.15 GPA. Might not reflect highly on my abilities or my readiness for medical school. And then you say, several life experiences have made me confident in my ability to succeed. Again, you having life experiences that have shown you personal resilience still doesn't give me the confidence that you are going to pass medical school. I love the attitude. It just isn't logical for an admissions committee member to go, she's had to overcome a lot, therefore we should give her a chance. I would say that is there if you showed any sort of upward trend, science GPA-wise, which you didn't. You showed amazing resilience in your all other GPA, right? You had that junior year dip, and you came right back with your all other GPA. Your science GPA never went back up, right, in a significant way to say that you have overcome, that you are resilient. So I love the attitude. That's the exact attitude and confidence that a medical school wants and needs and wants to see. But right now, it's just words on paper and not actually proven out with your actions, right, on your transcript. And so for me, the biggest thing for you is to go do a post-bac and prove it now. Okay. Show that you can get great grades in science classes. Show me that you have, quote unquote, bounced back, especially from that BCPM, the biology, chemistry, physics, and math part of your application. Okay?
Okay.
So you say here, right, the loss of a close friend. in that 2017 year, which I think coincides with that junior year dip. I let myself sink into a depressive state, which makes sense, right? It's reasonable, reflected in my grades. Yes, I see that, but from a science standpoint, there's no increase, right? That's the biggest thing. I see it in your all other, amazing, that's great, but I don't see it in the science, which is what is the most important part for medical schools. Okay? They don't care that you can do well in history. They need to make sure that you're going to pass pathophysiology and pharmacology and all of those fun classes in medical school. Okay. Again, I love the attitude, the perseverance and adaptability, the willpower and grit. I don't need you to sell it to me. I need you to show it to me. And you show that through your GPA and your MCAT and really just persevering through that, through the journey of your transcript, your grades, your scores, etc. Okay. All right, and then we get down to school list, and I think you're a Mississippi resident, correct?
Yes.
So I see Louisiana State, Alabama, Florida, South Alabama. All public out-of-state schools, which for me are a waste of an application. So again, being kind of naive to this process and understanding what residency matters and how it matters in public out-of-state and private schools, etc. Applying to out-of-state public schools for most people is a waste of time and money unless you have significant ties to those states, significant ties to those schools to say. And significant ties, a lot of people always ask me, what does significant ties mean? It means you grew up in that state, right? But you no longer live there. And you can say, hey, I grew up in this state and then I moved away for college and then I got a job and I would love to come back. My family's still there. Or my family lives there. I'm there every summer or there every Christmas. Like that is a significant tie. That's what I mean by that. So for me, a lot of schools on here, just a waste of an application. My question for you is potentially knowing how hard medical school is to get into. My question is, why did you submit an application with the stats that you had? And actually, I'm scrolling back. So your MCAT, you got your MCAT score before you submitted your application. It looks like. Looks like you submitted right after you got your score back. So So knowing the score, knowing your GPA, I want to understand, why did you submit an application to begin with?
I think part of it was just to, see how the process would go, just to give it a try, you know, because I did apply to some DO schools that aren't listed on here. So I was like, maybe since I saw on their websites, they tend to kind of be a little easier about some of the grades or the MCAT score.
Yep.
But other than that, I was very hesitant about the entire process. And I wasn't very, I wasn't expecting much to happen.
Okay.
As far as being accepted or invited for interviews, I think I just kind of went for it just to see how it would all play out.
Yeah. Yeah. I hate that. I hate that. And you're not wrong for doing it. A lot of students do that. And it goes down to what I tell students a lot when I say there are plenty of seats in medical school for students who have shown the academic capabilities and have done everything, blah, 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 right? Is a lot of applications to medical school are applications like yours. Students who haven't yet proven themselves academically. Haven't yet, right? Not that you can't, but you haven't yet. Haven't yet proven yourself on the MCAT. Haven't yet got the experiences to prove to yourself that this is what you want, but are naive to how hard and how expensive potentially it is to apply to medical school. Or maybe you do know and you're just like, well, I'm a good person as long as they just give me an interview and I'll shine, right? And you don't really understand the whole back end process of how someone's going to look at an application to actually give you a shot. A lot of applicants do that. And where you're shooting yourself in the foot, I'm all for, not really, I'm more conservative when it comes to applying to medical school, but I'm all for, like, if you want to apply and you're just like, let me give it a shot and I'm going to see what this process is like. great, do it, but understand the consequences. Now you're a reapplicant, which in the grand scheme of things doesn't really matter. It's not a huge red flag or a red flag at all to be a reapplicant. And some students apply thinking that being a reapplicant is actually a good thing. And I don't think that being a reapplicant is a good thing. But being a reapplicant just makes everything so much harder because now you have to show significant improvement over your previous application. Right, and so now we have an application, and luckily for you, you have a lot of room for improvement. But there are students who are applying stat-wise, MCAT-wise, experience-wise, that potentially don't have a lot of room for improvement, that are applying with bad stories or bad personal statements, whatever, right? Applying really late in the application cycle. Now they have to show significant improvement in their application, get new letters of recommendations, potentially write a new personal statement, just more and better of everything. It just makes it much more complicated, right? And it's more money, it's more time, and it's so much more of a headache. So, and that's why I say I don't like let me just give it a shot. If you want to just give it a shot, go and open up an application. You can start an application anytime. Just go register an account and don't submit it. That way you can see everything, but then you're actually not spending the money to submit an application and go through this process. So does that make sense?
Yeah.
What questions do you have for me?
Let's see. I guess you had mentioned a post-bac earlier.
Yep.
So would you recommend that over like a 1 year? Two of the schools in Mississippi offer biomedical master's degrees for students who are hoping to apply to med school.
Yep.
So would you recommend that over a post-bac or?
So, those biomedical masters are technically post-bacs in the kind of big picture way. So post-bac generically is just any classes you take after your baccalaureate degree, right? Your bachelor's degree.
Okay.
In the strictest sense, most people understand post-bac to be baccalaureate classes, right? Still bachelor's level classes taken after you get your bachelor's degree. In the grand scheme of things, an SMP or those biomedical master's degrees that are a little bit more focused on pre-med students, pre-health students are still kind of post-bac. So those will work fine. A lot of those are very selective, usually for students who have taken an MCAT already, which I don't necessarily understand why they require an MCAT score, a good MCAT score to get in, when a lot of times the students need that academic rigor to improve everything, including an MCAT score. So it's not wrong to do that. It's not wrong to go take classes at a community college or at a four-year university, higher division classes, whatever you can take to improve your GPA with an upward trend, shooting for like 3.8 and above, really. Just saying, hey, look, I didn't figure it out until now, but I figured it out, and look at me shine, right? That's where you want to go. So not necessarily a right way or a wrong way. With your cumulative undergraduate science GPA, that's going to be a red flag, even when you have hopefully a good graduate level science GPA. That may still hurt you for some schools, but there are plenty of students getting in with that low of a science GPA and rock solid graduate level GPAs. Okay,
yeah. Well, I finished my bachelor's degree in December. And so I had some extra courses that weren't calculated in with my application when I submitted it. And I got all A's that semester. So I think my overall GPA finished with like a 3.21.
Okay.
I'm not exactly sure how high that bumped up my science GPA. I think I was taking 2 science courses that semester.
Great.
So I'd have to double check on that.
Yeah. Use my calculators. What's my GPA.com.
Okay. What's my GPA.com. Okay. But so if I didn't do the master's or I didn't get into that, you think that maybe going back to the 4-year or the junior college and maybe redoing some of those courses would be good too?
Redoing and taking higher division level courses as well. And so for you, just depending on budget-wise, timing-wise, life situation-wise, whatever fits the best. I don't think you have to do The master's degree, obviously, that comes at a significant cost. It's usually a little bit more full-time and is a bigger strain. A lot of people like the master's because you can get student loans for the master's, and so that helps from a financial perspective. So that's something to think about as well. And a lot of times people, and we didn't really talk about kind of working or anything else during your undergrad, but a lot of times people really don't shine until they get to that master's where they have the financial ability to not work, and now all of a sudden they're able to shine. And that's where a lot of disadvantaged students with their background, they're working through college and supporting a family and doing everything else. And once they finally do a master's program where they can take loans out and they don't have to work all the time, now they're able to show that they're academically capable, whereas before they were academically capable, they were just too busy to show it.
Okay. So how would you recommend indicating that I'm going to be trying to do one of these programs if I'm planning to apply this summer?
You should not apply this summer. Absolutely.
Okay, so then
Absolutely not.
Okay.
Yeah, you can't apply this summer because you need the GPAs on your transcript to show the improvement. You cannot apply starting a master's program and hoping to update the schools, hoping that they'll give you a chance to show that improvement. I would not plan on applying. I would plan on taking a gap, applying when you have those grades in hand on your transcript, proving to yourself that you can do this, while also continuing to get more clinical experience, more shadowing, et cetera, to write a better story as to why you're doing this.
Okay. I think my last question would be, would you, as far as just like extracurricular hobbies that I have, would you recommend putting those on my application if they're like, okay?
Yep, I'm a fan of putting hobbies on an application. The application is to show who you are as a person, not only the things that you've done to prove that you want to be a doctor.
Okay.
All right.
I think that's it.
Well, great. Thank you so much for coming on Application Renovation, sharing your story, sharing your application, being vulnerable with us, allowing me to pick apart your application. It's not fun for a lot of people to hear, but hopefully it will set you up for success moving forward, and hopefully for the person watching this or listening to this, it will set them up for success as well, hopefully not repeating a lot of the mistakes that not only you make, a lot of people make in this process. So again, thank you for coming on, and good luck in the future.
Yeah, thank you so much.